Hello, it's André at BIGSPD 24 in Belfast. I'm here with Keir and Hollie. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I am Hollie Berrigan. I am a consultant, lived experience practitioner, integrative counsellor, and communications officer for BIGSPD.
I'm Keir. I'm an occupational therapist by background, and I'm the membership secretary of BIGSPD.
Thank you for joining me. This is the first interview I've done here in Belfast. Really excited. It's start of the conference, so there's about 500 people downstairs having lunch. We're just about getting ready to go. What does BIGSPD mean to you?
I think when I first came here, it was the first place where I saw lots of people who really wanted to help those who got a diagnosis of personality disorder. I think I was really struck by it being so different to every other conference, that it wasn't just academics and psychiatrists, it was people with lived experience as well. And it was the first time I really felt like I'd really connected with people at a conference, and I've hardly missed one since. So this is kind of my base for recharging everything for the work that we do, trying to help people who get this diagnosis.
So I hadn't been to like a big conference before I'd been to BIGSPD. And so it was a bit of a baptism of fire, I think. But I've been to lots of conferences since, and they don't have the same feel as BIGSPD. I think there is something really special around how there's lots of people with quite a broad range of opinion, but come together in quite a respectful way, without kind of saying that one side is definitively right and the other is definitively wrong. I think we can come together and think about the nuance between it. And I don't see any other spaces doing that in the same way, really. It's a good place to connect with lots of people with lived experience. I've certainly never been to another conference that has the same level of lived experience input and co-production from the board down.
It is a genuine mix, isn't it? I mean, I go to loads of events, and it's really unusual to get this many people with lived experience, but also the diversity of clinicians and researchers and academics at this sort of event. Has that always been the case, or is that something that you've built up over the last few years?
So I think it's very deliberate. And the first one I went to, there weren't any stands anywhere. And downstairs now, you've got private providers, but you've also got charities collecting stories of awful experiences of being diagnosed with personality disorder. So there's a real mix there. There's definitely kind of a real commitment that we will always fund 10% of places for people with lived experience. I don't think you get that elsewhere, but that it's a very deliberate thing. What we're doing at the moment is recognizing that the people in the room making decisions in BIGSPD probably don't represent the people outside of the room. So we're getting some consultation in about how we do that better. So it is very much a deliberate way of how does what happens here represent what goes out. And at the moment it doesn't, but we are working on that.
You guys are on the executive committee and have been for a while, but you're also giving a talk about your work with Beam Consultancy. So Hollie, do you want to tell us a bit about that session, what you're planning to do?
So we are talking about a particular area that we delivered a couple of interventions with people in, and how it was the same organisation, but our experience of that organisation was very different, and what made it different. And we want to think about what are the kind of key essentials to making relationships with people and making good practice work in places that might not necessarily understand it or want it.
And Keir, you're a mental health OT by profession. How did you get into this particular niche that you're working in now as a consultant in this field?
It was accidentally. So I started working in a therapeutic community. It was a space that listened to people, had people with the diagnosis kind of helping and supporting each other. And that just broke the rest of mental health services for me. I couldn't go back to practicing in the same way. So I went from that to applying to specialist services, ended up in Cardiff, went from Cardiff to back to England. And it was from that thinking, there's lots of stuff that I've been taught by the NHS. It's given me the skills that I need, but the NHS is getting stuck sending traumatized people across the country to providers who very often, in my experience, don't do what they say. And I saw people really suffering as a result, partly from what they were receiving, but partly because they were pushed into just going everywhere. So wanted to set up an alternative to that. And that's what we do day to day now. And I think just to add to what Hollie was saying, part of our talk It's about how do you do something good when a system around you is trying to undermine it. And I'm not saying that what we do is good, but in our talk, we talk about people with 500 bed days between them in the year before our work, 2 bed days in the year we supported them. So that change comes from somewhere, and that change can come about even in systems that really, really struggle to work with this client base. And we want to share a bit of that.
It's odd, isn't it, that the people doing really innovative, valuable work like yourselves, I will say that, are outside the system and in a sense kind of working, trying to improve the system, but from this commercial setting. What's going on there?
Well, I think one of the things you often find in organizations is that they get quite anxious, they can be quite paranoid. And my experience of being in an organization saying, I think what we're doing at the moment is really harming somebody, it was quite punishing. I got investigated when I started raising concerns about things. So outside of that, there's a bit more safety. You can just lean into the relationship you've got with the patient. Yeah, I think you can hear Wes Streeting at the moment talking about protection for whistleblowers. And I think that is going to really help clinicians who are more inclined to say something's going wrong, as opposed to people who at the moment, I think it's convenient to turn a blind eye, or at least it's scary not to. So being outside, there is an independence. You can say what you think. You're not as filtered, but it can come with a cost.
Final question. What are you most looking forward to over the next 3 days?
So I'm quite looking forward to Abdullah Mir, really interested in what he's going to talk about. And Mel Ball, I think, is my biggest excitement. A huge respect for Mel and everything that she has done for lived experience working. So I'm really excited about what she's going to say about it.
How about you, Keir?
Oh, it's going to be absolutely narcissistic. I'm doing a talk with Ellie Wildbohr about changing diagnosis from BPD to CPTSD. And while I talk about the technical aspects of that, I'm really looking forward to her experiences of before and after. I'm really looking forward to Andy Bateman talking about MBT. I really like the way he talks about helping people, and I like the idea of thinking about thinking and just giving people the idea that you are listening to them and trying to understand them is a therapeutic thing in itself. So I'm really looking forward to that. I want to hear some traditional Irish music, and I'm looking forward to going to the Titanic Museum and walking down the stairs like in the film.
Have a great conference. Always lovely to talk to you. Keep up the amazing work.